Today on Community Cooking, we have guest chef and registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin here to show us how to make a healthy, easy, and tasty black bean vegetable bowl with chimichurri sauce. We're cooking with some of the best chefs from right here in our own community. So grab a seat, relax, we've got another great menu coming at you. This is your Community Cooking. Hello and welcome to Community Cooking. I am your host, Kirk Leins. In our kitchen today is guest chef and registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Now, you are a dietitian at the Little Company of Mary Medical Center here in Torrance, correct?
That's correct. I primarily, as a registered dietitian, I work with the patients in the hospital, but we've also recently been doing a lot of outreach and effort within our community and building up some of our farmers market programs, as well as some...
As are we.
Yes, exactly.
Torrance Farmers Market rocks, right?
Exactly. It's an excellent farmers market.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, one of the best that I've been to, and I've been to a few.
Yeah.
Great. Now, today, you've brought a recognizable meal, but sort of the healthy version of it.
Exactly. Today we'll be making a, instead of a traditional rice bowl, we're going to be making a quinoa bowl with a little bit of black beans that we're going to flavor up with some little bit of garlic and pimentos, and then we'll be serving that with a little bit of roasted vegetables as well and a chimichurri sauce on top. Okay,
so replacing the rice with quinoa, replacing the meat protein with beans, and then bunch of great veggies.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Okay, why don't you run us through the ingredients real quick?
So we're going to be making the quinoa, which I've brought a little bit of dry quinoa that we'll prepare with some homemade vegetable broth.
And that's what it looks like when we're all done.
And this is the cooked product, exactly. Then we'll be cooking the black beans, which I've also prepared from scratch at home from dry.
Look at you.
Brought in some of these black beans that we'll cook together.
We'll get to that, more of that later.
Exactly. A little bit of pimentos with that, some tomatoes, a little bit of garlic and onions, and then...
Tomato sauce? Or
it's crushed tomatoes in a thick puree. Yes.
Got you. Okay.
And then we'll flavor that with a little bit of bay leaf and some crushed red chilies
and then
as well.
You've got a bunch of veg over here.
Exactly. The veggies are going to be the third component on top of the quinoa. We've got the beans, the chimichurri, and the vegetables. So for the vegetables, we're going to be simply roasting up some bell peppers. I brought lots of different colors, a little sweet potato, green onions, as well as Brussels sprouts.
Great. Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
So first thing first, I'd say let's roast the veggies because those take about 40 to 45 minutes to cook.
All right.
So if you wouldn't mind helping me out,
you want me to do, and I'll do it.
I'll have you do the green onions and the Brussels sprouts. So just remove the root tips and also the thin green parts towards the end, leaving about 6 inches of the veggies in the middle.
And then leave them whole at that point.
Exactly. We're going to roast them pretty much whole.
Okay. All right.
And I'll start up with the sweet potatoes. We're just going to dice these into 1/2-inch cubes. Approximately. You want them to be about the same size. They're about bite size, but you want them to be similar in size so that they roast evenly in the oven.
Okay, and these go in the pool?
Exactly.
All right.
We'll toss those with a little bit of olive oil and season them and get them started in the oven.
And what's next here? What would you like me to do?
The bell peppers would be great, yeah.
And how would you like those cut?
So these also diced into about 1/2-inch pieces would be wonderful. About the same size as the sweet potatoes here, so that we have everything cooking together at the same time.
Okay.
Nice and evenly.
And now this is a recipe that I imagine you can, lots of substitutions here, right?
Yeah. You can do pretty much any veggies that roast well on top of this bowl.
Sort of more of a concept-based.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this dish is not only is it something that you can copy as is, you can also change it up for the seasons. You know,
you could also
spring vegetables.
Yeah, and you could also probably change sort of ethnicities and flavor profiles, right?
Exactly.
What we've got here is skews a little on the Latin / I know you're putting a chimichurri, so that's Argentinian.
Exactly.
But you could make this Asian very easily.
Yeah, definitely. Changing up some of the vegetables, you could still use the green onions, maybe a little bit of bok choy or something like that.
And
do a different type of sauce on top.
Utilize it as a way to sort of use up vegetables, because since you're roasting them, they don't need to be the prettiest, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a really versatile, flexible dish, and that's why I love to. I love to teach patients these kinds of things that you can do and kind of put your own twist on at home if you wanted to.
And you know, I mean, this is such a recognizable, sort of popular way to eat now. You know, that bowl where it's everything you need sort of in one bowl.
In one bowl, exactly. It makes for less cleanup, right? Fewer dishes.
Delicious, too. Delicious. I love it. I love it.
And we're going to be using a whole grain. Quinoa is a nice whole grain, a complete protein.
Yeah, talk to me about that. That is, I mean, you do have, you actually have protein in both. While that kind of acts as the starch, it's also the protein, or one of the proteins.
Exactly. Quinoa is one of the few plant-based proteins that's considered a complete protein. And so it does have a good balance of amino acids, all of the amino acids that our body requires.
Is that why we love it so
proteins.
much? Is that the...
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. So good for you. And then we've also got it complemented with a little bit of beans. There is a little bit of certain amino acids that grains tend to be a little low in, so beans tend to complement that really nicely. So combining grains and beans makes for a good complete protein.
Well, you definitely aren't going to be lacking in nutrition after you eat this, right? I mean, between the fiber and the vitamins and minerals that we've got going on here. So just split these in half.
Exactly.
Look at these tiny little Brussels sprouts.
Aren't they cute?
Yeah. What happened here? Honey, I shrunk the Brussels sprouts.
I know.
They're
These
tiny.
happen to be a small batch, I suppose.
That's okay. You know what, though? You know, I got to tell you, for this application, I think I might actually like it better than one of, bigger. It's just, you'd have to probably cut that more.
Exactly.
And that just sort of, after a while, you cut it too much, then they start sort of opening up and coming apart. And, okay, why don't I bring that to you?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll get all of these going.
Look how beautiful that is.
And ideally, you'd want to maybe have a little bit of a bigger pan for this. Our oven's a little small today, so we'll be fitting them in nicely here. But yeah, a little bit more spread out
so
with
that
some
they
olive
open
oil.
up and you hit more surface space and they're not steaming, they're really roasting. All right.
Top that all up with a little olive oil. Give it a little shake.
And then how much? How hot is the oven and how long?
The oven is preheated to 375, and then we will be roasting that for 40 to 45 minutes.
Okay, why don't I get that in?
All right, beautiful.
And you can start on the next component.
So the next thing we'll do is get the beans going. I'm going to first start with a little bit of chopping of garlic and onions.
Okay, well, hold on a second. You are ahead of the ball game here, because these are not beans from a can. And why don't you tell everyone why you chose not to use beans from a can?
So I've been trying to implement more and more strategies to reduce sodium. So one of the things about canned beans is they're very convenient, but they often have a lot of sodium involved.
Actually, anything can that you buy in the store is going to have a lot of sodium, correct?
And you find more low sodium options these days, but...
So you soaked these overnight?
Yes, I soaked them first. In fact, I actually did a quick soak on these. You bring them to a boil with a little bit of water and let them sit for an hour. That's a good time saver.
Quick soak,
rather than an overnight soak. And then boiled them with a little bit of water for a couple of hours till they were nice and soft.
And it works out perfectly because you don't want to even put salt while you boil beans anyway, because it toughens up the skin. You always add that later.
Exactly.
So just to boil it with a little bit of water till they were done.
Yep.
And then you cooled them down. And you actually froze these, correct?
Yes. I actually have a couple of 2-cup portions frozen in my ready to go in my freezer now.
That's an amazing tip. That's an amazing tip because these can be used for all sorts of things, not just bowls, but you can make refried beans out of them.
Exactly.
You could throw this on a salad, taco salad. Be delicious, right?
Yeah.
So instead of having to, just quickly open a can or deal with the soaking, get this out of the way and have like 4, 5, 6 bags of these things in the fridge.
Exactly.
And then you're ready to go. Okay, so these are the beans that have been cooked. Now you can take it from there.
Okay, all right. So to add some more flavor to this dish, we're preparing these beans in one of my favorite ways to have with chimichurri sauce. We're going to chop up some onions and garlic, get those sauteing first. Then we'll add the beans and the...
Would you like me to do the garlic?
Please help me out with the garlic.
And how many cloves?
Just 2 cloves,
Two
for
cloves.
for the beans. The rest of those we'll use in the chimichurri sauce.
Gotcha. All right.
I'm going to just peel.
Now, is this something that they serve at the hospital, or is this something that you're sort of teach people how to make?
This is one of mine. Actually,
it's something that you eat.
Yes, growing up, this was a recipe my dad actually found in a magazine. Steak with chimichurri sauce and black beans.
Very Argentinian,
yes.
and a favorite of the Leins household. As the boys call it, green sauce.
Green sauce.
Steak with green sauce, yes. They love it.
And the World Health Organization and other major medical organizations have come out recommending we limit our intake of red meats. So I'm doing a vegetarian version today with a little, like I said, the quinoa to bring more protein to the dish.
And the thing, a takeaway here is also this chimichurri sauce. If you don't want to make the whole thing, make chimichurri because it stays good for a while because it can stay in the olive oil in your fridge.
Yep.
And it's like it tastes good on so many things.
Oh, it's so versatile. You can use it, like I said, on this bowl. You can use it on top of, I think, eggs.
Eggs, potatoes, dip for bread,
yeah.
any veggies, any protein. It's great on fish, you know, chicken, whatever.
You can even marinate with it. It's got a good, decent amount of acidity.
That's true too. You could.
Marinate some fish, throw that on the grill.
And they also call it Argentinian ketchup.
That's hilarious.
Because of the fact that it gets used on so many things. Okay, so I've got garlic here. Would you?
Okay, let's go ahead and throw that back in there.
Okay.
We'll get the onions started first so that the garlic doesn't burn while these kind of get nice and warm. I'm going to saute that up with a little canola oil. I like to use canola as my cooking vegetable oil. Olive oil is great. It's got a lot of health benefits, but it doesn't have a very high smoking point. So.
Right, and I also heard too that olive oil is really at its best health-wise when it's cold, when it's raw. When you heat it up, something happens. I don't know what that is, but it's not the same as cold olive oil.
Right, right. Oils tend to go rancid quickly, and so once you heat them, you don't want to leave them. You want to either eat them right away or use it cold. Like, I mean, the whole point of buying cold pressed olive oil is that it's been prepared. It's never been heated, exactly.
Okay.
All right, so it looks like this oil's getting nice and warm. Give that a little bit more heat.
Now, is this something that you make for yourself?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love to do bowls at home. This makes for a really easy to bring to work dish. I just throw it in a nice bowl.
So let me ask you, do you ever like stray away from, I mean, this is really healthy. Yeah. I mean, there's not too many things you could look at these ingredients here and say, oh, well, shouldn't have too much of that, shouldn't have. I mean, we're talking a lot of fiber, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals, good, like, whole foods here. Mm-hmm. Do you stray away from that? Do you
Personally, yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You know, food is about more than just health. We eat for so many reasons. I definitely indulge from time to time on.
Oh, I think that's important too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's about bringing balance to your life.
Because otherwise, I think you regret it at some point, and that's when I think people sort of fall off the wagon.
Exactly.
And do bad stuff. Is because when they haven't indulged and done it with gusto.
Yeah.
So, you know, now you're feeling deprived.
Yeah, it's like the pendulum swinging, right? When you go on the diet, then you go off the diet. And really, life doesn't have to be about that, and that's not the way to sustain long-term change.
Right, right, okay.
Absolutely. So these are just taking
a
moment
little
to
bit,
heat up
yeah,
a little
that's a
bit.
thick pan, so.
It is. It's a nice thick bottom, and that's actually really good for sautéing.
It
just
takes
a little bit
longer
to heat up. So we'll get those sizzling. We'll get the garlic going. Now I hear them. Give those a minute or two, then we'll add the garlic, and then next we'll get the beans going with the rest of the ingredients.
While that's warming up, talk to me a little bit about the quinoa and your preparation there and how that's going to work.
So today we can actually get the quinoa going. That'd be a good next step because the quinoa takes about 25 minutes to make. So what I did is ahead of time, I rinsed off our quinoa, which is an important step in preparing quinoa. They have a lot of like a soapy kind of material on the outside, which is natural to the plant.
Right.
But you want to rinse that off.
Okay.
It gives it a little bit too bitter of a flavor.
Yes, because there is a bitterness to it. You're right. So okay.
So rinsing it with some cold water, and we're just going to prepare it with broth. I brought in my homemade broth.
Really now?
I make a vegetable broth at home. It's another great sodium saver. There's no salt in my broth.
Right.
And it's very cheap to make. And this is another one of those things that I freeze ahead of time.
Right. Well, and you know, it's funny because it depends how diligent you want to be. Because the easiest way to do this is, you know, as you're look at all this stuff right here. If you're not composting, most people are throwing it in the trash.
Right.
But what you could do with all of this here is put it into a freezer bag, like a sealable bag. Keep it in your freezer, and then as it fills up, and you fill up a couple of them, put it in a pot with water.
That's it.
Cook it slow.
Celery, carrot, onions, add your veggie scraps, and you've got...
it wouldn't even matter what vegetable. I mean,
Exactly.
you want to stay away from things like red cabbage or something.
Yeah, nothing
Unless
too
you want
colorful.
Purple broth. Unless you want purple stock, right.
Yeah, that might be a little awkward.
but a great money saver in terms of like food waste. I mean, you're really now sort of honoring the stuff that you know comes from the earth.
You're right. You're right.
And that smells great because it's onions and garlic, and that's never bad.
Yes. Those are starting to kind of caramelize a little bit. You don't want to add too much color. I'm just going to be sauteing them enough
just sort
for
of making them
translucency.
like sort of get translucent a little bit, let them sweat.
And then get ready with the black beans. So the next step will be then adding the black beans and getting those kind of simmering nicely. And they'll simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. You can simmer them for longer if you want to add more flavor.
So now with the quinoa, you put that in with the stock, and you're going to bring that up to the boil together. You don't have to boil the stock first and get it
Yeah,
Okay.
you can throw them in cold.
And then do you keep your pot covered or no?
Yeah, that actually would expedite the boiling process. It's best to keep it slightly uncovered when you're actually simmering it so that it doesn't boil over.
Because it does the pasta thing.
Exactly.
And then your stove top that you just cleaned has starchy pasta water all over it.
It's a mess.
And you got to wait till the stove cools down. You can't clean it when it's hot, right? We all been there.
Exactly. Well, I think we're ready to go ahead and finish preparing the beans. So
great, yeah,
I'm
get
going
them
to add
in.
in our nice home-cooked black beans. And to that, we'll add a little bit of the crushed tomatoes. These are canned crushed tomatoes in a thick puree. So this is my only canned ingredient. Significantly cut back in the sodium by preparing those beans at home.
Canned tomatoes, though, they're such a great, you know, you can, granted, a fresh tomato is a fresh tomato, and especially if it's something that comes from a farmer's market or a backyard. But in terms of industrialization and canned products, it's one of the better ones, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And, you know, especially in the wintertime, you know, when you can't really get fresh tomatoes.
Yeah, you're not doing fresh tomatoes then, especially for, I mean, while in California we can get them here, you do notice, especially if you just go into the market, you're noticing a difference.
Yeah.
A major difference.
Huge difference.
You know. But yeah, it's a great product that you don't have to step on it too much, I think that's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now how long would something like that, and you put in bay leaf too, I see.
I put in a couple of bay leaves.
Nice.
Yeah, that just adds a nice little kind of background herbaceous flavor. And we're going to let this simmer, bring it up to a nice little boil, and let it simmer for about 10 minutes or so.
Well, I think that is a perfect segue to go to break.
All right.
We'll do just that, get cleaned up. We'll make the second part of this dish, put it together on the other side. So don't go away. We will be right back.
Meetings are, well, meetings. Unless that is, you're meeting in Torrance. Torrance has more than 67,000 square feet of total meeting space. Plus, we've got 1.5 miles of our very own beach, amazing Southern California weather, and are situated just 15 minutes from LAX. And after all your meeting and greeting, don't let the opportunity to explore pass you by. Do some team building and express your artistic side. You could even become a master chef, or just eat like one. And of course, make time to stop and smell the roses. And spend as much time as you can getting in touch with nature. Greet the day and meet the Torrance way. So, are you in?
Welcome back. I'm here with registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin, and we've got the makings of our bowl. We've got it handled, right?
That's it.
Got our black beans that we've been simmering through the break over there. This is our finished quinoa, and then we've got our vegetables that we're roasting.
Yep.
All we have to do now is just make the chimichurri.
That's the next step.
All right, so why don't you run me through the ingredients real quick?
Okay, so in today's chimichurri, we're going to be using a couple of different herbs. We've got some parsley and cilantro, as well as a little bit of oregano. We'll be combining that with some garlic, a little cumin, and red chili flakes, lime juice, and red wine vinegar to bring some brightness and acidity, and emulsifying that all together with some olive oil.
Great, beautiful. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can make chimichurri. I mean, well, what you've got here are sort of the makings of it, the parsley and the oregano. Cilantro, that's a little addition that you made, not really Argentinian, but it's going to be delicious. And then in Argentina, instead of red wine vinegar, they would use sherry vinegar. But other than that, and then no lime.
Right.
But garlic, a little bit of crushed red for sure, and olive oil. And you can do this one of two ways.
Yeah, so you can either do this in a blender if you wanted to. That gets for a little bit more of a uniform consistency. You can also chop it up and do it by hand. So there's a couple different options.
I actually prefer it this way. I like it broken like that so that you see the oil. I think it's awesome. So show us what to do here.
So the first thing we'll do is we'll take the parsley and the cilantro and kind of clear those off of the stems and run the knife through it a couple of times. The nice thing about parsley and cilantro is, there we go. Thank you. They come pretty nicely off the stems. You can even leave a couple of the stems intact because they're relatively, they're not too woody like the oregano stems are. So for some of these, I'm just going to pull out some of the bigger ones and get rid of some of the bigger stems, but I'm leaving most of these intact.
Another way you can do that too is if you have the bunch and a sharp knife, super sharp knife. If you go down, cut down this way,
I've seen that technique.
It'll take, here's the thing. It's not going to be as perfect and not going to get clear all the leaves like you've kind of done here. We've pretty much, left just bare stems.
Exactly.
But it's quick.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to save time, that's one way to do it.
That's a good trick. I've seen that done. I just don't often do it at home.
It can be a little wasteful.
Yeah.
I won't
if you're
lie.
working in an industrial kitchen, that works out well.
Yeah, that's kind of have to do it.
So I'm just going to chop up the parsley and cilantro together and get that going.
Would you like me to get going on this garlic for
That would be wonderful.
Probably
Thank
just one
you.
clove?
Yeah,
right?
1 clove should be adequate. We're making a smaller portion size right here for just a couple
And
of bowls.
it's raw application, so whenever you're using like garlic in its raw state, go easy. I mean, I know there's people out there that it's like more raw garlic the better, and you know, while I love garlic, I am not one of those people.
Yes.
Because it can just overpower everything, and you just don't get rid of that the rest of the day.
It's with you, you're right.
You know.
Absolutely. Judicious use of garlic, and you want it, especially for a fresh preparation, you want it really finely chopped so you don't have any big chunks. That can be a little bit too much for the palate.
I agree. And now you can maybe even make a little bit of a paste out of it, have some kosher salt if you wanted to, and just sort of grind it into a paste. But you got to be careful with that too, because you don't want to make it too salty.
Right, right.
And you're also sort of watching the sodium in this dish
Exactly.
too.
This is a low sodium, high potassium dish. Great for blood pressure. Absolutely. So yeah, that actually is a really nice little fine dice you've got going.
Not bad.
Well done, Chef
Yeah,
Kirk.
not my first rodeo. There you go.
So we'll get that going. Well, I'll add
Excellent.
this. It doesn't have to be uniform or perfect. Like you said, a nice little chunky sauce is good. A little texture.
Oh, that's great. That's perfect. I actually kind of like it like that, to be
yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah. And then to that, we'll add a little bit of the lime juice, the seasoning. I'm actually using a little bit of cumin.
Did you put oregano in yet?
Oh, you know what?
Okay, why don't I do that? I'll start on
Thank
that
you.
for you. That's easy. Look at that. That just comes out. You just go against.
Peel it right off, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that amount, what do you think? About right there?
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need a lot because that's also a very sort of. But I love the flavor of fresh oregano. Just so good. And it really, if you don't put it in chimichurri, you really miss it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I would not leave out.
Absolutely. Yeah, oregano's got a nice herbaceous quality. It's I like to use it in eggs. I like to use it in lots of different preparations. If you can find it fresh, which you can't always find in many grocery stores, but it's a great thing to have on hand.
And you know what you do if you don't have fresh oregano and you want to make chimichurri?
What do you do?
Leave it out altogether. Add in a little bit of lemon zest, capers, and maybe an anchovy fillet, and call it salsa verde, or something like what you'd use in Italian cooking.
Yes. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
Very
that's
clever.
what I would do.
Very clever. So,
Just change the whole name of the dish.
and that's the fun thing about this bowl. Like you said, you can really
That's
switch
perfect.
it
That's
up.
how I like my chimichurri. I think that's great.
And this this makes an excellent marinade as well. You can marinate fish, chicken in this. It's really like a very versatile sauce. So
Yeah, you could even like mix it with maybe a little bit of like mayo and use that on like a sandwich. Yeah, that'd be good.
Oh yes.
Okay, so now we're gonna sort of like kind of prepare our bowls, correct?
Yes.
All right, so everything's over there. I'll let you do the honors.
All right. So first things first, we're going to start with the base layer, like rice bowls you get at restaurants, or grain bowls that you get. Nice little base layer of our grain. I like to use anywhere from a ½ cup to a full cup. That's a decent sized portion of grain.
Yeah, I mean, it's filling.
Yeah, it is, and very protein rich, lots of fiber. So if you're making this at home and you're not used to eating a lot of fiber, make sure to drink plenty of water so that fiber does its job.
Right, okay.
And then, so we've got the base layer of quinoa. To that, we'll put the beans kind of on one section of it. We'll top up with the roasted veggies and then garnish with a little bit of the chimichurri. Now, I didn't pull these out ahead of time, but you want to make sure that no one gets these. These are the bay leaves. Remove those before serving. They are a little bit too crunchy to swallow.
That's not something that you want to like accidentally eat, because you will not swallow it.
No, exactly.
That's a trip to the emergency room.
Exactly. That's
Actually,
not
that happened to
comfortable.
a friend of mine.
Oh no.
Yeah, actually happened to a friend of mine.
From bay leaves.
From a bay leaf.
Oh,
Got
no
it stuck in
kidding.
his esophagus, and yeah, had no idea either what it was.
no.
It was just a big enough piece because it was, I think, part of like a dried bay leaf.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Safety
so
hazard.
Be careful.
First of all, count how many you're putting in so you know how many to remove.
That's
I think
exactly
that's
correct.
important too.
And I do that.
Yeah.
I absolutely do that,
Yeah.
especially with little kids in the house.
Yes, gotta
You know.
be very careful.
Our
All right.
veggies?
Veggies next, so
Okay,
we'll go
I'll
ahead and
hold that
top
for
with
you.
those. So you can see the green onions, the roasted red peppers. Actually, I used tricolor peppers, gonna give it a little bit of extra extra flavor and color. Eye appeal is important when we're preparing foods at home.
Now let's
like
say someone didn't like the quinoa. Like I absolutely just don't like it. What would you, maybe brown rice?
You could do brown rice. You could top this with a little bit, you could do all sorts of different whole grains. You could do millet. That's another one that I've been using lately. Yeah, brown rice would be an excellent substitute for that. I've even seen steel-cut oatmeal used in savory preparations recently, and that's
interesting.
Another slightly different take on that as well.
All right, I like that.
It's got a nice texture to it, like quinoa does. So with the steel cut.
Wow,
so
look
we'll
at that. A bowl full of nutrition.
Veggies.
Okay, so then we're on to our chimichurri.
And I'm just going to kind of garnish across the top of that. Bring some fresh green.
Yeah, that sure makes it pop, doesn't it?
Get some of that oil and vinegar.
Oh, that's going to be good.
And definitely save some of this to serve on the side as well, because you're definitely going to want more.
Right.
All right.
And like I said, it saves in the fridge really nicely.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it does. Okay, and then you also have the cotija here, correct?
Yes, so just going to garnish with a little bit of cotija cheese.
And it's a Mexican cheese. It's dry. It's sort of on the lower fat side, correct?
Right, right. And it's nice and refreshing. I like the creaminess to kind of cut through some of the acidity and really brings a lot of balance.
And it's also got a salty bite, so there's your salt.
Exactly.
And those are our finished bowls.
And voila.
Okay, so one thing left to do, that's eat these finished bowls. We'll do that on the other side of this break. We'll get all cleaned up, so don't go away. We will be right back.
Palm trees, coastline, craft brews. Yep, this is Southern California. But this is Torrance. Have you ever driven to a whole other city just for a bowl of ramen? Because if you haven't, that's about to change. Have you ever been to a beach that feels so much like your own private beach that you're like, where has this been all my life? Welcome, my friends, to Torrance Beach. So private, you hadn't even heard of it. Have you ever been to a mall that had literally 2.7 million square feet of shopping? Run, don't walk to Del Amo Fashion Center. And get this, Torrance is the actual epicenter of the South Bay's craft brew industry. I guess you could say the brews are just craftier here. We also have a farmer's market that's just as much about the people as it is about the food. And even our museum scene is the best of the South Bay. All this just 15 minutes from LAX. You'll come for the city, stay for the experience, and leave as a friend. So, are you in?
Welcome back. I am with registered dietitian Jessica Beaudoin, and here are our finished bowls. They look and smell amazing.
Thank you.
Bon appetit.
Shall we dig in?
Yes, let's dig in, please. And I'm going to attempt to kind of get a little bit of everything.
Nice
I don't know how successful, because there's a lot of stuff here. That is awesome. And the chimichurri works so good, so well with all of that. Yeah, this is really sustainable eating right here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
This is really good weeknight, sustainable, everyday sort of eating.
I made this for my friends the other day. They said they felt amazing afterwards and felt like
I
they
bet.
did something good for themselves.
I bet. I can feel myself perking up as we speak. Jessica, thank you so much. Please come back again. And just goes to show you, we really are cooking with some of the best chefs from right here in our own community. On behalf of myself, everybody here at Community Cooking, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Digging back in.
If you'd like a copy of the recipes seen on this show, send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to the Office of Cable and Community Relations. That's 3350 Civic Center Drive, Suite 200, in Torrance, California, 90503. Be sure to note the show number displayed on the screen. And don't forget, you can find all the fresh ingredients used on today's show at the Farmers Market. Visit the one here in Torrance at Wilson Park. That's located at 2200 Crenshaw Boulevard. They're open every Tuesday and Saturday from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m., rain or shine. And if you'd like to be a guest on our show, email us at communitycooking@torranceca.gov and check us out online at youtube.com/TorranceCitiCABLE and like us on Facebook at Community Cooking TV.